You are listening to Dr. Troy Munson with Words of Radiance. Now here is your host, Dr. Munson.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson, and I have clients that are really affected. Some are so affected by black mold, and I've known people that, they say I had black mold in my house and I had to leave. And I would ask the question, did everybody get affected by the black mold? Well, no, just me. And it will be routine that when somebody's affected by black mold, I'll ask them, how many people in the house affected by black mold? It's rare, but oftentimes, it's rare that anybody else, but if it is, it's usually one other person. And even then it's they're not as bad. And what we know about molds, about funguses, yeast, candida, things like that, if you've been around and listened to my podcast, especially about candida, you'll hear me talk about heavy metals. And heavy metals tend to get into the tissues, and if there's not good trace minerals to kick those heavy metals out, they'll stick around because the body would rather use garbage than use nothing at all. Because minerals are very important to run chemical reactions in cells. So if we look at all vitamins in nature, let's just take vitamin C. Vitamin C is not ascorbic acid. That's the preservative of the vitamin C complex. But the mineral component that drives all actions of how true, real vitamin C works, then that copper is what is really running the enzyme or the cofactor that helps vitamin C do its job in our body. So when we look at vitamin C supplements, we should see that there's indeed copper there. That means that it's probably food-based. And, if we look at vitamin E, it's selenium. So we have all these vitamins that we read about that are oftentimes synthetic, but if we don't have the right mineral cofactor, it really is probably just a synthetic vitamin, and it's really not doing much for you. I have patients that do B12 shots, and they say, well, I feel better doing them. I said, well, it might be helpful if you take a B12 supplement that's actually real from food, and it has cobalt in it, which is the mineral cofactor for B12. So as we run through this, why then would some bodies have more of an affinity or be more affected by black mold? And the black mold is happy to come in and help your body when there's a lot of heavy metal toxicity. It says, hey, I can totally help you. And yes, it comes in to try and help your body keep the heavy metals away from tissues, but ultimately causes problems too. And so you could say, well, it's the black mold that did it. No, it actually isn't. It's the environmental stressor or the chemical or the toxin or the heavy metal that you have in your body that is actually doing it. And there's probably even more factors than that. I know I'm oversimplifying this particular issue, but it's a good place to begin. So would most people benefit from just doing a trace mineral supplement that was actually from food like kelp and alfalfa? Absolutely, they would benefit from that. And let's say that you're one of those people that are in a house and you have black mold issues and it's affecting lung or it's affecting other things. Then we would begin to look inside the body to figure out what is the main issue. We'd want to know, where did you grow up? What did you eat? What were you exposed to? What kind of chemicals? What did you do? And if you're like, wow, I was the same as everybody else in my family, then you might just have a slight genetic abnormality, let's say, or a unique variation that says, hey, you don't absorb zinc or copper very well. Or maybe you really have an affinity for lead and you just absorb it. Or maybe you didn't have enough calcium for some reason. There are just a couple factors when your mom was pregnant with you that now develop this. Does it mean that you have to have it your entire life? Well, no, but it's looking for the cause rather than blaming an effect like black mold. Now, if you notice the title, he hasn't even talked about rats yet at all. Where do rats come into this? Well, and I'll use this analogy as some of my mentors have used with me. If you have a brand spanking new dumpster, let's paint it blue, and it's beautiful, it's pristine, and when it just sits there and sits there day after day, are any rats going to be in that dumpster? No. It's totally clean. There's nothing there. They don't care about the dumpster. But I'll tell you what, you fill that dumpster with all kinds of trash. Guess what's coming? Rats in a dump are coming. So you can go into the dump. I live probably a mile away from the dump at my house. And if we went into that dump and started killing all rats, just exterminating them, got rid of all of them, how long until we had rats again in that dump? Not too long. They're coming because that's their job. What do rats do? Rats look for refuse, for garbage. And in your body, the same thing is disease tissue. So what are the rats that are in your body? Those are the bugs, the funguses, the viruses, the bacteria, the amoebas, the protozoa, the parasites. So the more trash you have put into your body, the more bugs are coming to your environment. They're like, hey, this is wonderful. This is the perfect environment for me. Hey, thank you. I can help you. And so what do the viruses and bacteria and funguses do? They liquefy the disease tissue and the garbage in your body that you've put in there in the way of fast food, candy, empty calorie carbohydrates like donuts and what have you, bread, all that kind of stuff. And so now you have all these cells that are basically swimming in their own refuse because your body's so tired and so fatigued and so lacking in so many nutrients that it cannot even keep itself clean. And so all these viruses and bugs come in to try and help you clean up. That's their job. And yet now we're supposed to be afraid of the next flu to come around or the next pandemic, so to speak, when all it is you eating like crap and getting sick. It is why so few people have a problem with each pandemic. Yes, there are people that die that are very sick and succumb. And even some people that even look relatively healthy succumb. But I can guarantee you, rats in a dump. They have already proved over and over, in every disease, every sickness, the condition was there first, or the disease was there first, and then later, the bug came. Let me give you some examples. Tuberculosis. Oh, you don't want to catch tuberculosis from somebody. It's impossible, because even at the beginning stage of tuberculosis, with the little tuberculo cells in the lung when they're starting, and they can see them, they check for the bacilli or whatever it is, that's the tuberculi bacilli, the common name of the tuberculous bug. And what they would find is nothing until the disease got to a certain point. Then they would find the bacteria. And they would realize, oh, this is tuberculosis. No, that's just the bug that happens to tear down that lung tissue to try to get it liquefied and get it out so that you can rebuild new healthy lung tissue and repair. But you don't, because you don't change your diet and you don't do anything to help. You continue to have a dump. And so when people come into me and I tell them that the immune system is run mostly by your nutrition and your nervous system, I'll have clients that get adjusted and they're like, man, I haven't been sick in forever, doc, since you've been adjusting me. And I'll work on nutrition and they feel even better and they can't believe how good they feel. And they will sometimes tell me, look, doc, I would get sick like 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year where it'd put me down for an entire week. I was miserable. And now I hardly get sick at all. I might get a sniffle, but that's it. This is wonderful. What's happening? And ultimately, it's the innate immune system now working correctly and their diet is cleaned up and they've cleaned up their nervous system so that their brain is in better control of their tissues. And why wouldn't the body perform admirably under ideal circumstances like having a great nervous system functioning well chiropractically, as well as nutrition going into your body that's whole and complete? It just makes sense. And so if we don't want rats in a dump, you've got to start going through the work of cleaning up the body. Now, do we want to have black mold growing in our house? No, we probably really don't. So it doesn't hurt to clean up your environment as well. But ultimately, I mean, you've got kids out there that they share gum. They share lollipops. They do all this. She'll have 3 kids in a home and one is sick all the time and the other 2 aren't. I see it commonly. And I'll start adjusting the one that's sick all the time. And within a very short period of time, they're actually getting healthy. They're watching their diet still, but they all of a sudden start getting really healthy. And we track it back to whatever insult or injury that they had that damaged their nervous system when they were 1 or 2 years of age. And it's not hard to find. It's pretty commonplace. But if you were to say, well, germs cause disease, well, then when they exchanged gum or licked each other's lollipops or, shared pillows or whatever else they do and sneeze on each other and play cards or games or blocks or whatever, and 2 aren't sick and 1 is, you have to start to realize germs don't cause disease. They're the effect, not the cause. And so it becomes really important in your mind to start understanding that as we move forward from pandemic to pandemic, that they would like to let you live in fear so that they can simply have a bit more control. And that's my 2 cents on that. So until next time, don't let rats in your dump. You've got to keep it clean. And you might want to at least clean the mold out of your house, but more importantly than that, clean your body. Until next time, I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Revealing Wholeness.
The information on Dr. Troy Munson's podcast is meant to educate the listener and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease.